Mr. President, select file legislative bill 34. First of all, Senator, there are E&R amendments.
Senator Guereca, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the E&R amendments to LB34 be adopted.
Members, you have heard the motion. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The E&R amendments are adopted.
I have nothing further on the bill, Senator.
Senator Guereca, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that LB34 be advanced to E&R for engrossing. Oh.
The motion's been made. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hey, colleagues. What are we doing? We got LB34 and LB302. Did we decide? Because these are daylight saving and saving Senator John Cavanaugh and standard time. So I just thought, before we move both of them to final with a voice vote, that perhaps people might want to, make a decision. So that's it. That's all I've got to say. I'm going to be voting for LB34 on a record vote because I don't think we want to do a voice vote on these two. And I guess we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cavanaugh. Senator Murman, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to respectably oppose LB34. I want to begin by referencing one of the most recent and reputable surveys on the issue, a Gallup 2025 poll. In that poll, they found that only 24% supported permanent daylight savings time. 19% supported the status quo, and the majority, 48%, supported permanent standard time, with the rest not having an opinion. This polling data is also consistent with history. In 1974, President Nixon signed into law permanent daylight savings time. Initially, this move was met with a 79% approval rating, but by winter, support dropped to just 42%. Within the same year, the United States once again scrapped permanent daylight savings time. Even the National School Boards Association spoke out against the move, expressing concerns over the darkness affecting the safety of morning commutes, especially children walking to school or waiting at bus stops in the dark. I'll also point out to all the parents in the room, it's not easy to put a child to bed while the sun is still brightly shining through the blinds in the summer. Even our children can tell that daylight savings time is unnatural to our bodies. Our circadian rhythms are hardwired to get tired as the sun goes down and get ready for the day as the sun comes up. So much so that even a child can tell you this. But if the general public's opposition is not enough for you, let's ask the experts. Permanent daylight savings time has been opposed by the European Sleep Research Society, the European Biological Rhythms Society, the Society of Research on Biological Rhythms, and the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. So when we cast our vote today, let's stop and think about the public opinion. The 2025 polling shows only 19% of Americans support this move. When the very same was tried in the 70s, public support also plummeted. And finally, permanent savings time is opposed by a number of medical and sleep research associations. To address concerns about Colorado, I'll point out that the momentum for permanent daylight savings time is running out, while the momentum for permanent standard time is picking up. In 2024, the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, tweeted on X, formerly Twitter, and I quote, Keeping the state on standard time year-round could benefit residents by providing more consistent daylight during winter. This can improve overall quality of life and would actually save people money on energy too. So why would the governor, who had previously signed permanent daylight savings time into law, support permanent standard time? Because permanent daylight time needs federal action to take place and permanent standard time does not. If one's main goal is to end the practice of changing clocks back and forth, it becomes pretty simple. Do we want a bill that requires a gridlocked and slow Congress to act, or do we want a bill that does not? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Murman. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh is right. This probably would have gone by with a voice vote, except that I stood up to request a machine vote. And the reason I asked for a machine vote on this round of debate is so that we could see the count, so we could see how many people definitely voted for LB34, my bill, and then next on the list, I would request, or if Senator Murman did not request, which I think he was going to, a machine vote on his bill, just so that on select file we can see the count of where people are at with each bill before we go into final reading. I think this is one of, I would not prevent anybody from sharing their opinion on the mic if you'd like to speak, but I think that these issues, if we would like Nebraska to have the opportunity to go to daylight savings time, if other states around us adopt it, and if there's an act of Congress, or if we'd like to go to standard time if other states around us adopt it, these are conversations that we've been having for years in the legislature. And I don't know if the solution's going to be not solution, but I don't know if the outcome is going to be decided through floor debate. So I support moving both of our bills through select file so we can continue to have conversations and then perhaps have the final debate on final reading. I support daylight savings time, colleagues. That's what we're in now. When we changed our clocks on Sunday, on Monday, we were blessed with the beautiful warm weather. Most of us left the legislature here, not me, but most of us left and saw the beautiful sun outside, and we got to go home, and the day wasn't over. We got to maybe play catch with our kids or do some lawn work, or my neighbor was cleaning his car. And this is the time of year that we are in daylight saving time, and we can finally enjoy some daylight after work. So my bill would move Nebraska to daylight saving time if an act of Congress confirmed that we were able to do that, which it sounds like that is possible this year for that to have happened, and if other states around us also adopted it. So I've been happy to have conversations on the floor this morning with people just sort of clarifying again what LB34 does. My intention was to just have a machine vote on this so we can simply get a count on my bill and on Senator Murman's bill, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Senator Jacobson, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I do think the time has come for all of us to make a decision which direction we want to go here. Initially, I will tell you, I like the extra hour of sunlight in the evenings, and initially was supportive of this LB34. However, as I've dug into this issue more, I will now be supporting LB302, I guess, the permanent standard time, for a multitude of reasons. I think one thing that's clear is that my constituents want to stop moving their clocks. Okay, they want to go, let's pick one or the other. I can tell you, living in North Platte and most of my district is in standard time or is in central time. Part of my district, pretty up in Mullen, is in mountain time. I can tell you, you've got that, if you will, the hole in the donut between actually it gets closer to Paxton is where the timeline is at. So they are basically on the same time as Colorado. And of course, Colorado is 1 hour behind us. So I think what we want to continue to be aware of is that when you get closer to where the timeline is at, we see bigger gyrations in terms of amount of sunlight in the morning, amount of sunlight in the evening. So it is concerning that there will be times, if we went to permanent daylight savings time, we would see a sunrise on the shortest day at 9 o'clock in the morning, which seems excessively late. And I think as things have changed in terms of when we first started daylight savings time, there were a lot of compelling reasons to stop the insanity, if you will, and let's go to one time. Let's go back to standard time. It looks like that's where our neighboring states will probably end up. We don't need an act of Congress to make that change, and it looks to me like that's probably going to be the better way to go. What Colorado does will affect those people that are west of my district and really get into Senator Stroman's district, because right now you would get to west of North Platte, you'd roll your clock back, and then you would stay there in mountain time. That area could find themselves where you change your clock until you get into the Colorado border, cross the Colorado border, and then you change your clock again. So right now, it looks to me like, as I work through the numbers, going to permanent standard time would be the better way to go. So I'm going to vote no on LB34, and I'm going to vote yes on Senator Murman's bill to go to permanent standard time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson. Senator Hansen, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, colleagues, I think, first of all, I appreciate both Senator Hunt and Senator Murman bringing their bills. I am more in favor of where Senator Murman is going with keeping it at standard time. So I appreciate that approach better. I just like the fact that Senator Hunt is actually bringing this bill to at least kind of advance the conversation forward. But I think it's going to have to come a time here, colleagues, when we have to make a decision on maybe where we're thinking as a body, as opposed to, I just think the best approach as a legislative body is to move one bill forward instead of both of them. And so I'm hoping as we move along here with select file and final reading that we can make a decision about where you are individually, but as we would be as a body as well. So I am going to be voting for Senator Murman's bill. There'll be some people who won't vote for either because they don't believe anything should change, or some people who believe Senator Hunt's approach is better. And so, but maybe instead of voting for both, let's at least kind of see where the numbers lie so we can have a better idea of where we might want to move forward, if we want to move forward at all, as a legislature. So I'm going to be voting for Senator Murman's bill. I will not be voting for Senator Hunt's bill, but again, that's just my personal belief. People can choose what they want, but let's just kind of make a choice here if we can, so we can give some clarity to the people of Nebraska. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to quickly correct myself. I said that for LB34 to go into effect, it would take an act of Congress. That's true. It could also take an act of the Secretary of Transportation. It would be contingent on that federal policy change and the adoption of year-round daylight saving time by 3 adjacent states. Currently, Colorado and Wyoming have adopted this. For those of you in western Nebraska, Colorado and Wyoming, they're with what I'm doing. After we had the time change on Sunday, I can't tell you how much my mood is lifted. I think that wintertime is the most depressing thing in the world, and I think it would be really hard to have that year-round. So maybe take no action. Maybe you like changing the clock twice a year. I don't like it dark after work. That's why I brought LB34. And I'll just remind you all that Colorado and Wyoming have already passed this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Senator Storer, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I'm glad that we are having the debate on this, and I appreciate Senator Cavanaugh encouraging us to get on the mic and make sure this is not just a voice vote. I just want to clarify a couple things that have really already been said, but I think that are meaningful to the decision that we make here soon, which is, Senator Hunt's bill, LB34, as she said, would require an act of Congress. We would be dependent upon waiting for them to take action on this, and so passing LB34 just sort of puts us in a position to be beholden to the United States Congress, which we all know how quickly that may or may not move. In addition to that, Senator Murman's LB302, which advocates, which would put into action permanent standard time. Again, I've said this on the mic before, and I just want to emphasize this once again. It is more conducive to all of those people that are working outdoors here in Nebraska. It's not just agriculture that works outdoors. We have a lot of construction folks. There's a large swath of people that depend on those daylight hours for their workday, and we need to be very thoughtful about that. The other thing that occurred to me when we switched here a few days ago is that none of us have ever, it is refreshing to maybe have a little longer time in the evening. However, it's also a little slower to get things going in the morning when we switch to daylight savings time because it's darker in the morning. And we've never lived with daylight savings time in the winter. And I would agree with you, Senator Hunt, winter can be a little depressing for lack of daylight, but daylight savings time in those, November, December, January months, to me would be even more difficult for those of us that are light sensitive because it would be darker later in the morning when we're expected to be at work and productive. So those are just additional comments. I encourage senators, I agree, it's time to make a decision, but please be mindful that LB34 is contingent upon the federal government taking action, whereas LB302 is contingent upon our bordering states of Iowa, Kansas, South Dakota, and Wyoming taking action. So I feel like we have a little more of a voice with actually being able to implement LB302 at some point. So I will be supporting LB302. I encourage you to do the same. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Senator Storer. Senator Guereca, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Senator Cavanaugh for kind of putting the brakes on there. When you're doing the E&R chair thing, it kind of could speed up pretty quickly, get into a lull. So that was a good flag. Certainly this is something that does deserve prolonged debate. So I will be rising in support of LB34. Like I said, in my district, I have a lot of small businesses, a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars. The introduction of the Glen Leahy Mall and the riverfront area is a great place to bring your kids out after school, after a hard day's work, and enjoy good family time. So there's definitely economic interest there in my district. It encourages our downtowns and our main streets to be bustling with life, to be bustling with economic activity. So with that said, again, I'll be in support of LB34. I'm thankful for Senator Cavanaugh for pumping the brakes and allowing us to have this important conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Guereca. Members, the motion was already made to advance LB34 to E&R engrossing, and there was a request for a machine vote. All those in favor, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. There has been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
30 yeas, no nays, place House under call, Mr. President.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. All unexcused members are present. The vote was underway. Senator Hunt, will you accept call-ins? Yes.
Senator Duncan voting yes. Senator Conrad voting yes. Senator DeBoer voting yes. Senator Boston voting no. Senator Ibaugh voting yes. Senator Dover voting no. Senator Juarez voting yes.
Record, Mr. Clerk.
27 ayes, 18 nays, Mr. President, on advancement of the bill.
The bill does advance. I raise the call. Mr. Clerk.
Did I give you 34 already? Mr. President, select file. Excuse me, if I could, Mr. President, announcement. The Health and Human Services Committee will hold an executive session at 9:45 now under the north balcony. Health and Human Services exec session now under the north balcony. Additionally, the Urban Affairs Committee will have an exec session at 10 o'clock in room 2022. Urban Affairs 2022 at 10 o'clock. Some additional items, Mr. President. Your Committee on Banking, Commerce, and Insurance, chaired by Senator Jacobson, reports Legislative Bill 278 to general file. Your Committee on Business and Labor, chaired by Senator Kauth, reports Legislative Bill 415 to general file with committee amendments. Some motions to be printed from Senator John Cavanaugh to LB316. Additionally, Senator Storm announces Legislative Bill 316 as his personal priority bill for the session. Senator Storm, personal priority bill, Legislative Bill 316. That's all I have at this time for items, Mr. President. As it concerns the agenda, Mr. President, Legislative Bill 302, select file. First of all, Senator, there are E&R amendments.
Senator Guereca, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the E&R amendments to LB302 be adopted.
Members, you have heard the motion. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The E&R amendments are adopted.
I have nothing further on the bill, Senator.
Senator Guereca, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that that LB302 be advanced to E&R for engrossing.
That is a debatable motion. Senator Murman, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Continuing on the general file debate, LB302 would, if our neighboring states joined in, end the old, tried, and failed system of daylight savings time and keep Nebraska on permanent standard time year-round. To begin, I'd like to direct your attention to the letter passed out on your desk from the Nebraska Medical Association. During the general file debate, the argument was made that the claimed health benefits were really just benefits from the time change, not standard time itself. That is not the case. As the letter from the NMA writes, permanent standard time would also result in more natural light in the mornings, which is beneficial for health. Research indicates that exposure to light helps regulate sleep and mood. This is particularly important during the winter months when people experience less natural light. Standard time aligns with these patterns, while daylight savings time forces a later sunrise that disrupts morning light exposure, which can affect mood and productivity. But don't just take the Nebraska Medical Association's word for it. Permanent standard time has been endorsed by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, the National Sleep Foundation, the American College of Chest Physicians, the National Safety Council, the American Council of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, Canadian Sleep Society, World Sleep Society, Society for Research on Biological Rhythms, and more. The list of medical research organizations that have backed permanent standard time is extensive and for good reason. I'll note a few different studies and conclusions which are discussed in a 2023 editorial from the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine, which is passed out on your desk. Later sunrises and sunsets, as seen with permanent daylight savings time, are associated with multiple long-term health outcomes, including increases in stroke, heart attacks, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. In a 10-year study of standardized college entrance exam scores comparing students who resided in parts of Indiana on permanent standard time versus seasonal daylight savings time, what was the result? Students residing in daylight savings time areas performed worse on exams. Daylight savings time areas performed worse on the exams in Indiana, where the state does have both ways of keeping time. And while it may be true that permanent savings time may boost retail spending, the journal writes, in terms of the overall workforce and productivity, the sleep and circadian rhythm disruption from permanent savings time would negatively affect many outcomes related to performance and safety, including alertness, reaction time, procrastination, learning and memory, judgment, communication, creativity, multitasking, and workforce injuries. Circadian misalignment consistent with permanent daylight savings time is associated with losses in productivity, missed work days, and lower average salaries. Furthermore, when we speak on the economy, we should remember that Nebraska farmers and ranchers who are up early to tend to their crops and livestock. There's a good reason this bill was supported by the state Grange. A 2022 study demonstrated that people living in locations with at least 30-minute later sunrises and sunset than at the time zone meridian have a 21.8% higher motor vehicle crash relative fatality rate. This suggests that long-term effects on drowsy driving and other risky driving behaviors, as well as longer total commute time in dark, make permanent savings time less favorable. In conclusion, permanent standard time has more support, has a broad support of the medical research associations, including the Nebraska Medical Association, has a number of other benefits, and most importantly, does not take an act of Congress to go into effect. Thank you, and I request your green vote, and if you're still undecided, you're certainly welcome to vote for both, and the final decision will be made on final reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Murman. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to speak on this bill, but one thing I wanted to point out, listening to Senator Murman's opening, is a lot of the problems that he cites with the time change. He was talking about decreased productivity, decreased creativity, okay? More strokes, more car accidents, things like this. This is not because of daylight saving time, it's because of the time change. We see that twice a year, in the fall and in the spring, when we change the time. So these bad, that's what studies show. The bad health outcomes, the bad productivity outcomes, whatever, that's just because of the time change. And there's like a 2-week period after each time change when people are at greater risk for these things. But if we adopt a permanent change, whether it's my bill or his bill, people will adapt and that will go away. What people don't like and what they struggle with, obviously, is the time change and the period after the time change, not having a permanent time. You know, when in 3 months, in June, no one's going to be having car accidents and heart attacks because of daylight saving time. That's ridiculous. And what we just don't like is the time change. So it's up to you which one you prefer. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Members, the motion was previously made to advance LB302 for E&R engrossing. There's a request for a record vote. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
29 ayes, 4 nays, Mr. President, place House under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. All unexcused members outside the chambers, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. All unexcused members are present. The vote was underway. Senator Murman, will you accept call-ins? Yes. Mr. Clerk.
Senator Spivey voting yes. Senator Bosson voting no. Senator Ibaugh voting yes. Senator Mosier voting yes. Senator Sorrentino voting no. Senator Raybould voting yes. Senator Anderson voting no. Senator Dorn voting no. Senator Jacobson voting yes. Senator Hallstrom voting no. Senator Prokop voting no. Senator John Cavanaugh voting yes. Senator Stroman voting yes. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh voting no. Senator McKinney voting no. Senator Roundtree voting yes. Senator Decay voting yes. Senator Dungan voting yes. Senator Werder-Kemper voting yes. Senator Dover voting no. Senator Guereca voting no.
Record, Mr. Clerk.
26 ayes, 15 nays to advance the bill, Mr. President.
The bill does advance.